Hello and welcome to the Diversity Rest Stop here on the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR, highlighting diversity in and around the campus of Kutztown University. Since KUR's newfound focus on jazz in the past year, we've managed to interview some great headline talent from around the nation and the world. And it's even better when some of that amazing talent comes right out of Berks County. Jazz musician Marcia Haight is originally from the Fleetwood area and is now making her imprint in the music world in New York City and has a brand new album out entitled One Night. KUR had the great pleasure to speak with Marcia Haight. We're on the telephone here with jazz musician Marcia Haight, and she's in New York City right now. But what is interesting about Marcia is that she's from practically our own backyard, the Fleetwood area, Pennsylvania Dutch country, perhaps our most local jazz musician that we've interviewed here on KUR. Marcia, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you very much. Very well here in this rainy day here in New York City, but as I understand, it's being sunny there.
Yeah, well, not quite sunny, but not really rainy. A little bit of sun, but not a beautiful day, but not as bad as what's there right now. But that's okay. Hopefully, our interview brings a little bit of sunshine. You're from this area, so talk a little bit about your upbringing here in Pennsylvania Dutch country and how you got into your career of music.
Absolutely. Well, yes, my family has been in Berks County for a very long amount of time. Actually, my relatives owned the diner right there on Main Street in Kutztown. It was called the Kutztown Diner. Mm-hmm. I believe now it's called Letterman's.
That's correct.
But my grandfather first owned that diner, and then my uncle ran it, and my mother worked there. And actually, I think if you go into the diner now, you can see pictures of my relatives on the wall there of them working in the 1960s and the 1970s and stuff.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I actually grew up on the same farm that my father grew up on in the Fleetwood area.
Nice.
So that was very interesting. You know, I started my performance career, I guess you could say, actually at Maryland's dance studio right there in Kutztown.
Mm-hmm.
And as time went on, I was playing different instruments, piano and saxophone, and was in the chorus in school. I graduated from Brandywine Heights, which is in the Topton area.
Right.
And I was able to study, actually, with a man named David Bilger outside of Reading. He was a classical saxophonist, and he helped me develop my career where I went to school at the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, where I received my bachelor's degree. And during that time, I was able to play with awesome artists, legendary jazz musicians, Grover Washington and Randy Brecker and Bill Watrous, and just really feeling that brotherly love there,
right,
and being in the midst of jazz. And I have made my home actually here in New York City then, after living here close to 17 years now.
That's amazing. Wow. Well, good for you. I was reading your biography a little bit here, and what's interesting about your music is that it spans several genres. It's not all, some people say it spans the gamut of Latin, funk, jazz, rock. And when I was talking to you in person a few weeks ago, you were saying, you consider your music more of like a smooth jazz type feel, yet other analysts have said, you're more of traditional jazz. So what exactly is your music? What do you like to consider your specialty?
Well, I feel a lot of my influence, as a lot of composers and stuff, they take from the time period when they were growing up.
Yeah.
And so I really sometimes feel like I have a 70s flavor to myself as I am composing and playing. And of that then being all the influences from the 70s. At that time, the Latin music was just hitting this country, and having great composers out at that time, performers Tito Puente or whatever, but then also just having the real funk sound and, at that time, fusion, but, because as growing up, I was playing in rock bands around there, and
right,
playing at the Fire Company companies there and stuff, which they don't have things like that here in New York City, you know.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. So this album that you're heavily promoting now, what is the name of your album?
It's actually called One Night, which is also a piece that I composed on the CD, being One Night. And that is a piece that I feel is from like a 70s feel. It's, I tell people has a feel of like Grover Washington or something.
Okay.
Philadelphia sound.
That's very good. So who would you say some of your influences are? You're talking about the 70s, that Philadelphia sound. Who are some of your big influences?
Well, actually, since my CD does cover like so many different genres, I have the same huge palette for performers and artists. From the 70s, if we're thinking of alto players, of course, Grover Washington. Contemporary sound, David Sanborn.
Right.
He really influenced where a lot of smooth jazz players are today, performing and stuff. But I also heavily have always listened to traditional, of course, being an alto player, Charlie Parker, studying the bebop period, and after the hard bop period, Sonny Rollins, many tenor saxophonists, of course, living in Philly and walking on John Coltrane's star every day. You have to be a Coltrane lover.
Absolutely.
Being in Philadelphia since, that was his hometown.
Absolutely.
And, and the list goes on, even going back, to listening to ragtime or something, Sidney Bechet playing soprano saxophone, and where players now today have Kenny G or whatever, where they're playing on the soprano saxophone. He was like the grandfather